remedy from the court. So plead must be in a document, which means always in written format. It contains statement of facts. These facts prescribing the contentions of the party to the claim. The next is, after plaint is been filed in court, it will be given, a notice will be given to the other party, which is the defendant. When this particular defendant will receive the notice of a plaint, after going through the plaint, when he will file a written answer regarding allegations made before him, made against him, that written answer is known as written statement as per CPC Order 6 Rule 1, because it states pleadings include plaint and written statement. Nothing else is been covered by CPC regarding pleading. So what is written statement? I am going to read it very slowly. When the party against whom the contentions have been raised submits a statement of facts disputing or denying the case of the plaintiff, it is called written statement. Dear friend, written statement, then it should always differ from the plaint, because the definition itself says that statement of fact disputing or denying the case of plaintiff. So in written statement, defendant will always deny about the allegations or the contentions raised before him. So this is the meaning of written statement. Dear friend, this concept of pleading is very old. When it is also been used in English law, when the Britishers were ruling our nation, Privy Council has also been held a decision, a judgment in this case which is before you in Someshwar versus Tribhuvan, whereby Privy Council decided that the object of pleading is to give fair notice to each party of what the opponent's case is. So it is again the notice to each party of what the opponent's case is. Both the parties must aware which are the contentions, which are the replies, which points which are agreeable, which are differ. So in this Someshwar versus Tribhuvandas, Privy Council cleared the object of this pleading. Not only Privy Council, but again it was observed by our Supreme Court in the year of 2009 in this case of Bachaj Nahar versus Nilima Mandal. Thereby, Supreme Court also discussed the object and purpose of pleadings. They were like this: the object and purpose of pleadings and issues is to ensure that the litigants come to trial with all issues clearly defined and to prevent cases being expanded or grounds being shifted during trial. So it is, the object is the issues, and if issues are clearly defined, to prevent cases being expanded or grounds being shifted during trial. Further, Supreme Court discussed that its object is also to ensure that each side is fully alive to the questions that are likely to be raised or considered so that they may have an opportunity of placing the relevant evidence appropriate to the issues before the court for its consideration. The first object as observed in Bachchan-Nahar case by Supreme Court is to give notice to each the parties about the claim and the answer of that claim. By giving notice, both the sides will arrange the evidences to support their cases, and not only the evidences but appropriate evidences relating to the fact as put before the court. So two objects are also been observed by Supreme Court in Bachchan-Nahar case in the year of 2009 to give notice to the each party to the claim, and this notice will help them to arrange the relevant evidences to support their claims or to support their suits. Again, the objects of pleading were also been reiterated by Supreme Court by the learned judge Honorable Justice Sabyasachi Mukherjee in the case of Ram Swarup Gupta versus Vishnu Narayan Inter College, whereby the citation is AIR 1987, Supreme Court, page number 1242. In this Ram Swarup Gupta case, Honorable Justice Sabyasachi Mukherjee discussed and cleared the object of pleading in this manner. The object and purpose of pleading is to enable the adversary party to know the case it has to meet, on which issue they were alleged by the opposite party. This is considered as the fair notice to the opposite party, which are the questions which they have to meet before the case, before the court. So this is also a very good observation of the Supreme Court, which helps us to know the object of pleadings. Now again, in this case, it is further been declared by the court that in order to have a fair trial, it is imperative that the party should state the essential material facts so that other party may not be taken by surprise. This contains the fundamental rules to pleadings. I am repeating, in order to have a fair trial must be fair, just and speedy. So to have fair trial, plaintiff or defendant must state the essential material facts so that other party may not be taken by surprise at the time of argument. Surprisingly, a new point is being raised by any party, it will be the surprise for the other, because you cannot create a new fact after plain or written statement is being filed. So everything which is covered by plain and written statement, under that periphery only evidences can be proved. By evidences, that fact can be proved. So not a surprise has a vacancy in this civil suits. This is the observation of learned Justice Sabyasachi Mukherjee. Now, as this case also states the fundamental rules, I would like to switch to the fundamental rules of pleadings. Order 6 of Civil Procedure Code by Rule 1 to 12, it discusses the fundamental rules regarding this pleadings. Dear friend, in pleadings, as per Rule Order 6, it is stated that every pleading must state facts and not a law. So this is the rule, that pleading should state facts and not a law, which means that in pleading, if only facts are given with the support of a law, that pleading is not a fair pleading. Let me give an example to explain this first fundamental rule, that pleading should contain only fact but not a law. For example, if plaintiff has pleaded that plaintiff is the only legal heir, then this statement is not factual statement. The reason or how then this kind of point can be narrated in plaint, if plaintiff wants to make it clear that he is the only heir of the deceased person, he should give such kind of facts that as he is the only son or a daughter of the deceased person, his relationship with the deceased person, and then court will come to the conclusion that the plaintiff is the only legal heir of the deceased person. Dear friend, plaintiff is not the authority to decide what is the law. It is the duty of a court, it is the job of a court to decide which law is applicable. You cannot show the court that you should apply this law in this matter. It is the authority of a court to decide which law is applicable in the fact put before him. So if plaintiff wants to make it clear that he is the only heir living of the deceased person, he should clear the relation of him or her with the deceased person, and if there are other relatives are present, their relationship with the deceased person should also be shown to the court by way of plaint. Then it is said that he is the only living heir. But you can never use the plaintiff is the only legal heir. What is legality is been discussed, is been be checked by the court only. Let me give you the second example, that plaintiff is entitled to certain money from the defendant. For this particular example, if plaintiff has received a goods from the defendant, and at that time the plaintiff received or the promissory note to pay the rest of the amount within 45 days. Now if X, who has given the promissory note to B, that I promise to pay you this much amount after 45 days. If 45 days are been expired, but the money is not paid to the B, then plaintiff can claim that money, but not by using the word that plaintiff is not being paid by defendant the amount of the goods delivered to the defendant. That kind of language cannot be used by the plaintiff, which clears the legality of that claim. To see the legality involved in the issue is only the task of a judge of a court. Third example I can give you of SANDHAN. We all know that anything which is gifted to the bride on the day of a marriage is called SANDHAN. But in a plaintiff cannot state that this particular movable property is a SANDHAN. You cannot use that title in your plaint. It should be mentioned like that these properties are being received by the bride on the day of marriage. Conclusion can never be derived by the plaint. Conclusion will be given by the court only. So, this is the first fundamental rule, that plaint or pleadings can contain only facts but not a law. Whether there is any exception when law consider it as the fact? Yes, dear friend, there are few exceptions to this first rule of pleadings. These exceptions are foreign law, presumption, customs or usage of trade, and for the sake of clarity and convenience. Dear friend, foreign laws, for that, if in the particular issue, if foreign law is involved, plaintiff or defendant can make a note regarding this foreign law, that as these are the fact of the cases, this particular foreign law is applicable to this case. If judge will take a judicial note of that particular foreign law, then it will become the legal aspect or the law. But whether there is a foreign law involved or not is again not a question of law but a question of fact, because in the present fact the particular foreign law is applicable or not is the question of a fact, not a law. So it is covered if in the plaint, then it is not against the first fundamental rule. Court will decide whether foreign law is applicable or not. The second exception is presumption. This presumption is related